Hey Global Leader! Welcome to Joyride with Expatriates. In this show, we bring every month a different person to talk about their expatriation experiences, how to manage cultural differences, and how to become an effective person while living abroad. Hi, I'm Tatyana Fittipaldi, and in this channel, we make videos to help global leaders just like you become more productive, more effective, and improve their leadership both in business and life. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Christopher Thomas. Chris was born in New Jersey, USA, and moved to China after college to pursue new career opportunities. He has experience in the teaching industry there, but decided to create a fun YouTube channel about cooking with his wife, first as a hobby, but soon it grew into a serious project. Please join me in welcoming Chris to our show. Chris, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me.
So I'm so glad you're here, and I have a bunch of, interesting questions for you. So let's start by, giving some context to our viewers. Tell us, where you were born and why did you move to China? And tell us, a little bit about what you miss in your country and what you don't miss from there.
Okay, so, all right, a quick, I guess, story of my career. So I am from the US, so like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, originally that part of the country. And I first started like getting interested in China basically just in university because, I don't know, when I was a university student, I was really into like finance and economics, and at that time, especially, China was all over the news for being, this kind of economic growth success story, this kind of thing, right? So I was first just kind of interested to like go there, study abroad, just kind of like see it for myself, right? So, I went there in university, did like international business program at Northeastern, spent like a year here in university. My educational background is finance. So when I graduated, it was like 2008, 2009, and it was the financial crisis. So, whereas previously, maybe if I had like a fund accounting job or something lined up for me after graduation, I probably would have ended up just taking it and staying in the States, but that wasn't really too much of an option at that point. So I had a friend here who was basically saying like, well, you can come back, teach math, especially in like 2009, right? It's like, well, finance, teaching math, foreign teachers were in demand. So yeah, I came over here, started teaching math. And yeah, basically kind of like bounced around the education industry, doing different kinds of things. My plan was I really wanted to get like a finance job here, right? That was my goal, right? So I really tried really hard and really applied myself to the CFA exams. So, it's always kind of like an insane amount of studying, but, it's not too bad. I had some time. And, so I really tried to, do that. I ended up, passing both of the exams on my first go. Yay. And I just assumed that after that point, right, like the finance jobs, they would just be lining up.
I know.
Right. But yeah, the world doesn't work like that. And, if you have a country that's growing at a rate of 10% per year, it's not like this necessarily magical land of opportunity. There's definitely opportunity, but it's always contextualized, right? It's always, for who, under what conditions, right? So yeah, they don't just give finance jobs to foreigners here, right? Like that's not a thing where it's like, oh, well, a private equity firm in China, they just really need a, a white dude just to, I don't know. Anyway, so that was disappointing. I ended up going back into teaching mathematics, and just kind of on the side, me and now my wife, we started doing a cooking channel because I was always really interested in the food, right? That was always kind of like one of my joys of traveling, and I've always enjoyed cooking too, right? So yeah, basically we started doing that, and it was just kind of a hobby at first. You can go see some of our really old videos. They were not professional in the least. They're still not really that professional, but like,
they're
especially they were
amazing.
borderline unwatchable, but like people like the recipes. And so, yeah, we've done that for now a little over 4 years. And we've been lucky and blessed enough that, doing food is now our full-time job. So yeah, it's definitely a kind of a convoluted path, right? Never started in media or anything like that. As for what I miss and don't miss about the US, I'm going to say what I don't miss first. And then there's definitely stuff that I miss, but I need to think about it real quick.
Sure.
What I don't miss is really, like, you're living in the US right now, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what I don't miss is the car dependency in the United States. It's one of the big things. It's like, you can't even like go to the bar with your friends and have a beer without being like, well, I guess I need to drop $100 on an Uber or something, right? It's like everything is really spread apart. Where were you from originally?
I'm from Brazil, and I'm in New Jersey. So yeah, I hear you. We need a car for everything.
Yeah, you can't survive basically, And that's one of the things where it's just like when you're in the US, there's like an entire concept of like stuff that you need to do called like running errands, right? When you're in kind of like a more, I don't know, a place that's not like in North America, there's no like running errands. It's just like you just go downstairs to the supermarket because that's like on your way home. It's that's definitely something that, I do like the United States, but I would say that that's definitely just kind of like the urban form, unless you're like in New York City or to a lesser extent, Boston or Philly or these kind of places, right? Like, yeah, I mean, it's a little hard to get around. What I miss about the United States, I would say that, especially where we live in Shunda, I miss a lot of, the United States is more internationalized, I would say, right? Like, in New Jersey, I'm sure you can find like, some Brazilian food or something, right?
Stuff.
Like, yeah, it's just like, here, it's like maybe like a little bit of like generalized Western food, maybe some Japanese food. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely less internationalized. I would say that the United States, one of the really kind of cool and beautiful things about the country is that there's just people from everywhere. It's really kind of like the diversity of that place that is really kind of, I think, compelling to me personally.
Nice. That's interesting. And from your story, there are so many questions that, I want to spin off from everything that you told me. The first one, you mentioned about your YouTube channel, and I was wondering, and it's very inspiring. So I was wondering, what do you think, do you think it takes to, to grow a channel, do something different like that, and to grow as an entrepreneur in a foreign country?
I'll say the YouTube thing at first. One thing that's always, I think, a little bit hard to disentangle when you're talking about something that like you've done personally that has worked out. Is it's always kind of hard to disentangle the luck aspect, right? Like, so on a very kind of like basic level, like, you know, it's kind of a little bit like right place, right time, like it always is, right? So, yeah, I guess like I would say that, you know, for a YouTube channel, you can never figure out how much is luck and how much isn't luck, right? But I would say just in general, something that I would say for us is that I feel like a lot of people on YouTube and doing social media, this kind of thing, they're always very quick to try to spin it off into a business with a lot of costs, right? And it's something that, you know, I would say for us, something that's really worked out for us, and maybe it wouldn't work out for other people, is really having this kind of like laser focus to like not spend too much, really try to like keep costs low. And even if it's just like, you know, your own personal, I don't know, entrepreneur, anyway, whatever, your own personal project, right? Knowing like, not to necessarily like buy like an expensive microphone at first, right? Like you can grow into that, you know, like when you feel like you're limited by, you know, some of the stuff you have, then you can buy stuff. But basically for us, we started out very, very kind of like using a really crappy old iPhone and like just a little Zoom microphone, and totally the whole initial investment for the channel was about 300 RMB, so about $50, right? And then, you know, from there, it's just like, you know, we are kind of like blessed because like, at least for now, we don't need to take sponsorships. You know, we have a Patreon, you know, we can rely on like even the fluctuations of YouTube ad revenue, because we live in a low cost, low rent city, right? So I would say like, that's definitely something for us that I feel like could be applicable to other people. Even if you're not quite so, if you haven't gotten quite so lucky as we have, yeah, just kind of like being focused on not letting those costs balloon, because I know a lot of people on YouTube, and that's fine. Maybe they want to create their own media company, and that's great, right? But a lot of people seem like very quick to want to hire other people, want to turn it into a small business. And, you know, again, that's great, right? If that's like the path that you want to go. But I guess for us, you know, we enjoy kind of the independent creator lifestyle.
So it sounds
and then you had another question, sorry.
Yeah, about the entrepreneur, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like for us, you know, it's like, would we call ourselves entrepreneurs? It's Steph is yelling, no, yeah, we wouldn't really call ourselves entrepreneurs. So what advice for, maybe let's just say people trying to do their own thing in a foreign country, right? I would say that for us specifically, one of the things that has often been like a focus for us is getting a sort of freedom of movement. Basically that we weren't tied down to a specific location. And being able to do a YouTube channel, right? Like you can't just, you know, we need to cook stuff and we need to test stuff, and, you know, it's a lot easier. You can't just like do that in a van on the road, although that might also be interesting content. But like, yeah, just like having that ability to kind of go to different places and go to low cost places. That definitely is something that we've thought about. I don't think I really answered the question, but that's just what came to mind.
No, but I think it's you have some pearls here. So you're saying, look, if you want to be an entrepreneur in another country, so start low cost, test your, your product or your channel or whatever it is that you're doing for entrepreneurship. And, once you're growing on into whatever, then, you start improving, you start hiring other people, but don't, just jump put all your eggs into a basket before, doing some testing. And another thing that you said that is very interesting is that you're saying, look, I aligned my values to what I'm doing. So I think that's a fantastic tip too. Like you're saying, do what you love, do what you want, and make sure it's aligned what you want from life. So that's a good tip too.
Yeah, sure. I definitely do think that first part is definitely something that's true, right? I would say like no matter no matter the field that you're in, right? Like if you can start small, then you can grow something. You can do things kind of like on the side, and if let's say maybe you're teaching or something, right? You can get some clients yourself, and you can maybe create a entity for yourself, even if you're working for another company, right? You can start slow and just see where something goes.
Right. That's awesome. And, when we talked offline, you mentioned something also interesting. So remember I mentioned to you that I said, I think my personal view is that we should, make expatriates understand that, an expatriation experience is not traveling. And you have a different perspective from that. So tell us what this perspective is.
Yeah, so specifically, sorry, you were saying the difference between living in a foreign country and traveling to a foreign country. So maybe I'm forgetting specifically, maybe like, what I was telling you before. But something that I would say is that when you're traveling to a place, lots of times you're kind of in this sort of, I don't know, traveling bubble, right? Like, if you are, let's say you're going to, I don't know, Bali or something, right? Like you're traveling there, but you're not really interacting with Bali. You're purchasing the Bali experience, right? You're going to the beach and you're going to your yoga retreat or whatever. A lot of the stuff that exists within the tourism industry is there to kind of cater to you, right? Whereas if you're just living in a foreign country, right, like the country doesn't change to you, right? Like you need to change to the country. So I would say that's one of the big things, right? When you're a tourist, you're purchasing something, you're the buyer, right? When you're living in a place, you're just a dude, you're just a person, right?
You're part of the workforce.
Yeah, you're part of the workforce, right? So, in some sense, you're selling something, right? So yeah. it's a little bit different, right? So
that's interesting. And Chris, so what do you think? So since we're talking about adaptation, what do you think are the biggest mistakes expatriates do, especially in China, when they're trying to adapt?
The biggest mistakes. This is going to sound almost paradoxical to the first thing that I said. One of the big things, especially because I feel like, at least when I came to China, everything, because it was growing so fast, right? You have a whole kind of like strata of people that are in China because they just think it's a good idea, right? They want to learn Mandarin just because they think it's a good idea, that this is just like the next step for their career, this kind of thing. And what I kind of find is a lot of these kinds of people, they end up, I guess, forgetting to enjoy themselves while they're in a foreign country, right? Like, again, this is kind of opposite of what we just said about like, traveling versus being an expatriate. But at the same time, it's like you are doing something that is like not everybody has a chance to do, right? Like not everybody has the opportunity to live in a completely foreign country so it's like, a lot of expatriates, especially in China, they're just kind of like, they'll go to their local expat bar and they'll grumble about China or whatever. And it's just like, well, I mean, it's fine. Everybody's got to let out some steam every now and then, right? Like, I'm not judging anybody for complaining about stuff, but it seems like for a lot of people, they forget to enjoy the country that they're in. So one piece of, I guess, advice that I would give people is that, to find something in the country that you're living that you can't really get, or that country does really well. So for me, it's very easy. It's food, right? Like, I love food and cooking. And if you're into food, or especially like Chinese food, like China is the place to be for those things, obviously, right? So I've always really been into that. So I found a lot of joy and satisfaction kind of, even if you're unemployed or something, you can still go around and try different dumpling shops, and that can bring you a lot of joy, right? And can give you a reason to stay and enjoy a place. And it gives you a little bit more of a positive perspective. Now, not everybody's into food. I had, one friend in Shenzhen that, like, he was just really into like Kung Fu and Tai Chi, right? And that was just like his thing. And so every week they would go to the park and they would do, Tai Chi, and, that kind of gives you a reason to enjoy a place. That if you can have a hobby that's, related to the place. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, to try to actually enjoy your time somewhere, because, otherwise it's very easy to kind of like, get sucked down this like spiral of negativity, right? And kind of lose the bigger perspective.
True, that's true. Yeah. And especially because maybe I think it's because we start focusing too much on, what we miss and things like that. And then we end up forgetting about the good things around us. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And during your background story, you mentioned, that, people don't just give finance jobs to foreigners. And I hear usually a lot of expatriates reporting that they see a lot of discrimination against foreigners where they are. And so I was wondering if you have any recommendations for these people when they are feeling, sort of excluded and rejected and this kind of thing. If you have, based on your experience, any recommendations? I have felt myself like this here, so I was wondering what your take is.
Yeah, right. I would say that. How to say, not to necessarily minimize kind of your experience, because also the United States is a little bit of a kind of a special case, right? It's kind of a country that prides itself. Anyway, not to get political. Anyway, I would say for people, let's say, coming to Asia or coming to China, I would say that, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I would say, especially like, I don't know, if you're a white dude coming from the US, like you're going to China, it's like you end up experiencing for the first time in your entire life what it feels like, even just a little bit, to be kind of like, I use the term numerical minority, because technically you are a minority, right? Here, most people are not, like the majority of people are not like white people here, right? And, you end up kind of, being defined by that aspect of who you are, right? You end up being defined by your identity, even if you've been here for 13 years, right? People will still view you as, the same kind of like goofy foreigner that just got off the boat, right? So I would say, like, to some extent, like, yeah, I mean, like, welcome to life. Yeah, everything's not like peaches and roses. But, you know, at the same time, I guess I would say that, sorry, just to gather my thoughts real quick. You know, sorry, just give me a second. I would say that, like, on some level, though, it can almost end up being a little bit of a blessing to be almost excluded in that way. And let me explain, right? If they gave like just fund accounting jobs to foreigners here, right? I would just do that, right? And for a brief time, I was doing accounting here actually, and I found that I really wasn't too crazy about being an accountant. And, you know, if I had that path that was just open to me, then I would have just gone down that path, right? Like, it's very natural to just kind of like, you know, follow those grooves. But I would say that, you know, it's one of those things that if you don't have this entire kind of like societal structure that exists to kind of like, you know, for your progress, to give you a path, that you're kind of forced to create your own path, if that makes any sense, right? Like, you have to kind of figure out how to do something yourself, and for better and worse. And I would say that, like, for at least me, right, like, I'm very happy that, you know, we have to kind of, you know, create something ourselves. We're forced to do that because otherwise, right, like, there's not much else you can do except like entry level teaching jobs, right?
So that's fabulous. So basically, if I understood you correctly, basically what you're saying is, dude, if a door is being closed to you, it's because there's a window somewhere else, and you know, you should look through that window, you know. And I think I agree with you. I mean, if I, you know, if I wasn't forced to do other things, I would never, you know, do these things. And I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm having a blast learning everything that I'm learning. So I totally relate with what you're saying. I think it's something very interesting, a very interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like one of the things you can kind of see. You can kind of like trace this thread, not to pat long-term expats on the back too much, right? But I would say that it's something that you kind of see, you know, there's a reason why, like, in the United States, like, immigrant communities tend to be so successful, right? I think it's because if you're forced to kind of see all of the opportunity that's around you, you know, you can see things that other people don't necessarily see, right? Because you're forced to, you know,
think out of the box.
Yeah, sure. I was trying to think of a not cliche way to say those words, right? But yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think that's an amazing tip. I think it's true. Most of us, most expatriates, especially when we are in the beginning of the experience, right? When we're in the first years of living in a different country, I think we're too much focused on the things that are going wrong, and sometimes there are many things that we can do outside, you know, and we can experiment. And so yeah, I think that's a fabulous tip. So my next question actually is related to yeah, so it's a question that I ask everybody in the show, which is, what do you think you learned during this experience, you know, with the expatriation experience? What did this bring to you as a benefit?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think it's a little bit hard to say because, like my entire adult life has been, out of, so it's really kind of a little bit hard to disentangle, right? Like, what did I learn from moving to a foreign country? And what did I like learn as a human in my 20s? So it's a little bit difficult for me to answer that question, I would say. Is there maybe a different way you could tweak it that maybe I can get my brain juices flowing?
Yeah, sure. So how about this? If you could give us one word about when you came to, to China, and how you could translate that experience, what would that word be?
Yeah, I can't think of one word, but I would say that, when I first came here, it was a time when I was like a little bit younger, and, often when people are younger, you have a very inflated sense of self, right? And, again, this is one of those things that's a little bit hard to disentangle from like just learning about life in your 20s, right? But really teaching you a lot of humility, and maybe, I'm not sure, right? But I would say that, going to a foreign country, if you're not prepared to kind of be humble and, adaptive and change with the country, then yeah, you're not going to last, right? Like you're going to, go home in a couple years and whatever, right? So I would say like, maybe I can sum it up in one word, which is humility. How's that one?
That's a good word. I like it. No, I think it's true because, sometimes we come with a mindset to a new country, and then it takes on our pride to say, oh, I was wrong about my assumptions. I was wrong about, the way I was perceiving that country or the culture and those things. So yeah, we have to be humble. Yeah.
Right.
So before I move to the last question, I want to do also another one that I've been doing the past episodes that relates to hand gestures. So is there a hand gesture that is very common in China? So for example, something that comes to my mind is a Korean gesture. And I was wondering if that happens, if it has the same meaning in Japan. They do something like this to, something like this to say like love or something like that. And I was wondering if, this hand gesture also exists in China.
I don't know. I've never seen it personally. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's a very large country, and I've often been wrong about stuff before, where it's just like somebody's asking me, oh, does this exist in China? And I'm like, no, I've never seen that. And then it's like, oh, well, it's actually a thing in like the Northeast or something, right? So I've never personally seen that specific gesture. Hand gestures. Hand gestures. For some reason, the only thing that I'm really thinking about is like the Chinese hand gesture for numbers. Steph, can you think of any interesting hand gestures? Oh. Steph just went like this to me.
Yeah, what does that mean? I see many Asians doing this in pictures, etc. What does that?
What does it mean? I don't think it really means much at all. I think you can frame your face
like
victory.
That. It's like
I don't think it's victory. Does it mean anything? No, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I guess. Okay, it's a very kind of, I would say, boring, uninteresting thing. And I'm sure as soon as this ends, I'm going to be like, there's like a perfect
I remember that one.
Yeah. there is something, okay, it's not a hand gesture, but there's something that I kind of find interesting, that it's something that like people do hear a lot, and it ends up being so contagious, this like behavior, that like I also do it, and I see like a lot of us, they're expats also doing it, which is anytime anything slightly counteracts your expectations, right? We do something similar in the West, but it's not quite as pervasive. You just kind of go like, right? And again, we do the same thing in the US, but it's just like, it happens so often here, where it's just like, somebody's like, it's a very kind of expressive, like, huh? Kind of thing. Okay, that's also kind of a boring answer. So we'll go with, this means the number 10. That's fun.
This means the number 10?
Yeah, so it's like, it's like 1, 2, 3, right? 4, 5, that's normal. But then also it kind of continues to go up, right? Like, so this is 6, 7, 8, 9. There's a couple different 10s. I like this one, because then you can also do hand motions for like larger numbers, right? If you want to do like 21, you can go like 21, right? So 2, 10, 1 kind of thing.
And what about okay? Does this sign mean okay in China?
Like, does this mean okay in China? Yeah, no, I don't think I've seen people. I'm like looking at stuff. I'm trying to think like, no, okay, yeah, that's right. No, people don't go like this.
Don't do.
Right? Yeah, right. But I don't think people would like, people often, they like giving, foreigners thumbs up, so that exists.
That exists, okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. No, what I find interesting is that different places, have different gestures, and sometimes they mean nothing. Like you're saying, okay, doesn't have a significance in China, and sometimes they have a completely different significance, and you think you're communicating something, and you're communicating something completely different, right? So I think this is amazing. Yeah.
At the risk of being at the risk of painting with too broad of a brush, right? I would say in general, people here are a little bit less expressive with their hands than like a lot of people in a lot of kind of European societies. Think about the cliche like Italian, right? Like that wouldn't necessarily exist, at least in Guangdong.
Yeah, that at least from the movies, that's what it seems like, that they don't express, they don't have they don't express with a lot of gestures and even facial expressions. Maybe it's important for them to keep their composure. I don't know. Do you have a take on that?
I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't go as far as the second statement, but I do think that like, in Europe, there's that distinction too, right? With like, North Europe, South Europe, right? You can kind of, I've never been to Europe, right? So it could just be like a cliche thing that I learned from media, right? Like that, like Italians go like this, but like, I would say that like, it is a little bit more, I don't know, waspy, let's say, right? Where people, are a little bit less expressive with their hands, I'd say.
So now I'm going to share with you a card, and I'd like, so it's a card that we sell from a deck of cards, and we use that, to help us think and meditate and have different perspectives about certain topics. So I'm going to share with you this card, and tell me anything that comes to your mind when you read it. Okay.
Sorry, for some reason, I'm getting like the desire to read it like very dramatically, but it's
do it.
No, it's okay. I can't actually pull that off. I'm not that talented. Okay, so I decide to live in harmony. I am in control of my life. Alignment between my thinking, my saying, and my doing brings balance to my life. Balance. Yeah, okay. I think kind of what I would personally think is that, you know, kind of what you, like, we often have this kind of sense that what we do is dependent on what we think, right? Like, we think first and then we act, right? So I conceptualize what's important to me, then I do the things that are important to me, and then that's kind of like the arrow of causality. And I guess, like, maybe what I would take from that is that, you know, that's also not necessarily kind of the arrow of causality, and that in a lot of ways, what you do also changes who you are and what you think. And that, you know, those two things are constantly, you know, in tension and interacting with each other, right? So that's it's my pop philosophy read on that, that concept.
Nice. That's nice. Thank you, Chris. That was amazing. So thank you so much, Chris, for, you know, for being here, for, you know, telling us your perspectives and you know, sharing your tips and everything. It was, I think it's amazing to always talk to different people and talk about different perspectives. This broadens everybody's views, and I think that's a way to grow and you know, try to adapt, right? And by having different perspectives and being open-minded. So I really thank you and appreciate you for being here. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Well, thanks for having me.
Hey, I want to tell you one more thing. You are a global leader. The question is, do you have all the skills that you need to succeed? I'd love to help. I save my very best tips for my subscribers. Subscribe for free at coachingexpatriates.com. I know your inbox is sacred, so I promise I will send you emails that you will love. Wow, it's interesting to learn about different perspectives, isn't it? I really enjoy these talks. I hope you do too. So if you like this video, give us a thumbs up so that other people can find us, and consider subscribing to our channel and hit the bell so that you can be notified when new videos comes up. Thank you so much for watching.